Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar. I hope everyone is doing well. Let's wait like a few minutes just to let people hop on. I see we have people slowly coming on, and so we'll just give it a few minutes. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Jessica. I am the social media and community manager at University of the People, and I'm here with Rich Lamontagne. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Perfect.
UoPeople Business Chair, but we'll get into an official discussion soon. But I'm really excited to be here. Just a few words about me. I actually used to work for University of the People many years ago, and now I'm back, and I'm very excited to be here. And this is my first webinar with Rich, so I'm very grateful he's joining me. And let's see. So we still have some people coming in. Um, Let's see. What do you think, Rich? Should we start or should we wait a minute?
I think we can go ahead.
Okay, you're in charge, Rich. Okay, so let's get started because everyone has busy lives. So again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica. I'm the University of the People Social Media and Community Manager, and I'm here to interview Rich Lamontagne. And for those of you who don't know about University of the People, um, we are the world's first tuition-free online accredited university with over 150,000 students from over 200 countries and territories. And University of the People is breaking down barriers to higher education through, online education, making it accessible to everyone, everywhere. So that's really the goal at UoPeople. I'm very, very grateful today to be here to interview Rich Lamontagne, Chair of the Business Administration Program at University of the People. We do have somebody who will be answering questions. Lisa, thank you, Lisa. We're very grateful for you too. All the questions can go in the questions section, not in the chat section. So if you have questions, you can ask them in the questions section, not the chat section. And Lisa will do her best to answer you guys. And we'll also do some questions at the end. So I'm very excited today. We're going to go behind the scenes of our business program to explore what makes it unique and how it prepares students for the real world, and to learn a bit more about the person helping to lead it. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking so much, and let's get to know Rich a bit. So Rich, hi, how are you?
I'm great, Jessica. Thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for being here today. I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate you taking the time to take part in this webinar. So tell me, can you please tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you studied, and what led you to University of the People, just so our viewers can get a little bit more information about you.
Sure, thanks. So I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, but now I live just outside of Tucson, Arizona, in a beautiful area called Dove Mountain. And I didn't go to college right out of high school. I entered the workforce. And shortly thereafter, after a couple part-time jobs and one full-time job, I transitioned to a Fortune 500 company where I actually spent 38 years with this Fortune 500 company. And I started there without any college experience. And shortly thereafter, I started and earned my associate degree. And over the next several years, I earned a bachelor's in organizational management and a master's in strategic leadership. And what really led me to University of the People is my passion for helping others achieve their academic ambitions. Having not attended college right out of high school, I know the value of education and the ability to advance one's career. And what I found was my college experience was much more relevant and meaningful because I was a working adult as I was going through school. And I was able to put into practice and see the value of what I was learning real time. And so it became very meaningful and purposeful for me to be able to share my passion for learning with other students and other people in a similar situation as I had experienced.
Okay, very interesting. Actually, um, I don't think we discussed it, but I'm also from Chicago.
Huh, it's a great city.
So funny. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, but lived in the city for many years. Anyway, so that's so interesting. And where did you go to university?
My bachelor's and master's degree was a small Christian college in upstate New York, Roberts Wesleyan College. And that is actually where I started teaching. And so talking about what inspired me to get into higher learning, um, as I was earning my master's in strategic leadership, I had completed that program, and one of my classmates in that program had invited me to attend this informational meeting with an organization called Junior Achievement. And if you're not familiar with Junior Achievement, it's an organization that engages with business professionals to deliver their prepared curriculum to elementary school students. And their curriculum starts at first grade, teaching those students about self, learning about self. Who am I? Um, and then each year thereafter, it expands. In the second year, they're learning about family. I'm an individual, but I'm part of a family. And so learn about family and then learn about community. And by the time they get to the sixth grade level curriculum, they're talking about the global environment. And so my wife and I both went to this informational session. And after the informational session had completed and they laid out some of the teaching materials that they use in their program, they said, you can take a look at these. I turned to my wife and I said, so what grade level do you want to teach? And she said to me, I just came to keep you company. And so I said, could you listen to that pitch and not want to give it a try? And so she said, okay, I'll do second grade. Um, and so I think I did fourth grade. Um, quite honestly, it was life changing for both of us. She was in banking since we got married. Um, and she decided she was going to give this a try. And she started teaching at an elementary school very close to the house. I was, assigned to that same school. We had different classrooms, different days of the week. But it was my introduction into an educational experience as an instructor role. And I really enjoyed it and found it to be so purposeful and meaningful and fulfilling that I asked myself this question: do you think you could do that at the college level? And so I decided I'm going to give this a try. And so I contacted my alma mater, Roberts Wesleyan College, where I did my undergrad and grad work, and started there as an associate professor. And I did that for about 9 years while I'm still working in corporate America. And I guess you could say maybe I'm a slow learner because it took me that 9 years to figure out my passion was really in higher learning. And so I transitioned out of corporate America full time into higher learning and earned my doctorate in organizational management and leadership and transitioned into higher learning.
Interesting. So, did you meet your wife in school?
No, we met, we were bowling and we were on separate lanes next to each other.
Oh, it's so
And I was
cute.
bowling with my father and my brother and our next door neighbor. We did that most Saturdays. Turns out she did that with her girlfriend most Saturdays. And we met and started talking and exchanged numbers. And then we started dating and then we got married and here we are.
Very nice.
But
Okay,
I started
so
talking about how it was life changing for both of us. They
yeah, that's
really, they really appreciated how much she assisted students, and they could see that she had a passion for this. So even though she was working in banking, they said, "Have you ever thought about working in a classroom?" And so they hired her on as an assistant to a seventh grade special ed teacher. She left banking, and for the next 15 years, she was assisting teachers and helping students.
wow, it's so interesting. You guys were both, you had lives before you went into education and higher education. It's very interesting. And that leads me to my next question. What do you love most about working in online education?
What I love most about working in the online education is the opportunity to meet and interact with students and faculty from around the globe. Um, when I first started teaching, it was in a live classroom, and I really loved the dynamic and the interaction of the live classroom. In fact, the director of the program kept asking me, because they had an online version of the program I was teaching in, and she kept asking me, when are you going to teach online for us? And I thought, I just don't know if that's going to resonate with me. And she kept asking me, and I thought, well, many institutions are going in that direction, so I probably ought to give it a try. And I gave it a try, and I loved it. And what I perceived was students in the online environment got to know each other better than the students in the classroom, because students in the classroom, at the end of these courses were 5 weeks long. And at the end of 5 weeks, one student on that side of the room wouldn't be able to tell you the name of a student that sat on the other side of the room, because they talk, but not necessarily to a specific individual, but just in general to the group that's assembled there. But in an online environment, we have what we call discussion boards, and the instructor posts a discussion prompt, which each student responds to with their thoughts, what they took away from the reading, how they've seen it applied in a work environment, and share their perspective. And then they read other people's posting and respond specifically to that other student's posting. And they also are asked to provide an introductory posting where they share a little bit about their background, what brought them to this institution, what is their work experience, what are their ambitions, so they get to know each other. And I really focus on, as an instructor, what they say in that introductory message, so that when I respond to their postings, I can connect what we're learning to what they're either doing currently if they're working. Most of our students at that point were working adults, or what are their aspirations, so that I can connect what they're learning to what they aspire, and it really brings out more meaning and connection. And so the students really form a learning community and really learn from each other how they're interacting with the material, how they're looking at how it applies, how they see it working in their work environment. And so just the opportunity to connect with those students, and it brings a much richer mix of students, because it's not, limited to the geography. Like, Jessica said, we have students from 200 countries and territories around the globe, and our instructors represent a global population as well. And so it really enriches the learning experience. And when I started teaching in the classroom, I would tell the students, I learn as much or more during these sessions as the students do. And they would look at me like, well, how's that possible? You're the instructor. You know this. And I would go around the room and I'd say, how many years of experience do you have? And I would total up the years of experience in working that was represented by the students. And I could come up with 150, 200 years of experience represented by the students assembled. And it's necessary and sufficient. With 200 years of experience, they've witnessed things and observed things that I haven't seen. And so they bring a different perspective of how this concept applies in their experience, and it broadens the application for all of us.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest advantages at University of the People, is that there's people from from over 200 countries and territories. So there's so many different cultures and learning experiences. Like, you're not just receiving a degree, you're also, having a really great experience connecting with people you would never connect with in another environment. So very, very cool. If you were not in academia, what do you think you'd be doing today?
That's a very interesting question. And when I think about that, I reflect back on my 38 years with a Fortune 500 company, and what was I doing there that really resonated with me. And my last role there was managing employee development and learning for their strategic services group, their largest single organization. And if I wasn't in academics, I would probably be in an HR department with the role connected with employee development and learning, because I really enjoy helping students, helping employees, because I did that before I left this company, understand what is their passion and how can we connect what they're passionate about with something that is within the confines of the organization. And so I would encourage them to do exploratory interviews with different departments to see what does that department do, and is that something that really resonates with me? And then they can talk with an individual that's performing the role that might be of interest to them, and maybe shadow them for a day and see, wow, that's not what I thought it was, or that's really what I want to do. And one of the things when I first started teaching, I would ask the students, if there were no constraints in life and you could do any job you wanted, what job would that be and why? And it's amazing what they come up with. And the most important part of that is the why, because that really defines their passion. And I would start out answering that question for the students, and I would say, my ideal job is what I'm doing now. And that's helping educate others to achieve their academic ambitions, to then allow them to achieve their ideal purpose in life. And I
Okay.
remember one student in particular, first night of class, and she was recently out of the military, and her ideal job would be to work in logistics. And the reason why would work in logistics, serving our men and women in uniform, because she was in the military and she knew how important it was for them to have what they need, where they need it, when they need it, because it's life depends on it.
Right.
And so later on, when she graduated, um, I was running the honor society at that location. She became a member of the honor society because she did very well in her academics. And after she graduated, she contacted me and said, Rich, would you be willing to write me a letter of reference? And I said, absolutely. What's it for? Well, it's for Lockheed Martin working in their logistics to support our military.
Wow.
I was never so pleased to write a letter of reference in my life.
That's
But
so
needless to
that's
say,
so
she got the job.
good. I love that. And what would surprise people about your day-to-day work as a chair?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know what surprises some people, but um, one of the things that I really enjoy that you might find surprising is the opportunity to engage our instructors, not just as educators and facilitators of learning, but also drawing upon their experience to help shape our curriculum and make it meaningful and relevant for our students. Because one of the things that I think sets University of the People apart from many academic institutions is what I call practitioner-based faculty. Um, like myself, when I started teaching, I was teaching concepts that I was practicing as a business professional. And so practitioner faculty bring relevant real-world application from their personal experience into the classroom. And one of my roles as a chair is to engage our faculty in helping develop our curriculum. So we call them subject matter experts, and they use their subject matter expertise to work with an instructional designer to help develop and redesign our courses to ensure that they're relevant for the subject matter, for the content area, and they draw upon trends that are taking place real time in business and use current theories and concepts from higher learning institutions to bring all of that together so that our students get the latest that's out there in the field that prepares them for success in their chosen field of career.
Okay, very interesting. So let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to focus on the business program specifically at University of the People, which I think is probably why a lot of people signed up for this webinar, because they're interested in the business program. So I'm going to ask you a few questions that are more specific to the program. So first things first, what do you think sets UoPeople's business administration program apart from other universities?
Well, some of them we've talked about, and it's not unique to the business program, but that's the fact that we have a tuition-free model, and it opens up the doors of higher learning to all qualified students. And so that sets us apart. Students don't have the expense of buying books or paying resource fees or any of those things. And the learning experience, I think, is enriched beyond what they would experience at other institutions for some of the reasons we've talked about. We have a very diverse student population, so you're going to get exposure and interaction with people that have very diverse experiences and backgrounds, and it'll broaden your view of the world. And if you're looking to, operate in a global environment, having that experience in the classroom to see how other cultures, backgrounds, other parts of the world and the globe experience things and view things broadens your appreciation and ability to interact and connect with that global market. And so it provides that level of insight to complement your learning of the concepts and theories of business and commerce. And again, our faculty being practitioners, they're working their day job in the field in which they're teaching. And so again, they bring that real world application, and they can help the students connect these theoretical concepts to a practical application, which really brings meaning and purpose to what you're learning.
For those who don't know, actually, I feel like I should have addressed this in the beginning, but can you explain what exactly tuition, you touched on it a bit, but maybe you can explain exactly what tuition free means.
We do not charge tuition. Most institutions have a per credit hour fee. So if you're taking a 3-credit course, you take that per credit hour fee and you multiply it times 3. We don't have a tuition fee. We have a small assessment fee that students pay to participate in our programs. And we also have, for our undergraduate students, associate and bachelors, we have scholarships available. So if you're qualified academically, but you don't have the financial means, we look to see if we can align you with a scholarship to even cover those small assessment fees that we have to help cover our operating costs, because there are costs associated with our operation. We try to be as cost effective as possible. We don't have a brick and mortar school. Each of us works remotely. I work from my home, which is great for me because my commute is from my living room to my office. So it's about a 4-minute walk.
That's a really long walk. I don't know how you do it. Okay, so thank you for explaining that. I think it's really important. Yes, University of the People was created so anyone, anywhere could study.
Yeah, our mission is to open the gates of higher learning to all qualified students, regardless of socioeconomic status.
Which
You
is
just
really
have to have
wonderful.
the academic standing. They have to have a high school diploma to start. And if they're looking for a graduate program, they have to have an undergrad degree from a regionally accredited or the equivalent of a regionally accredited. And we have a NACIS organization that compares diplomas from other institutions to determine if they are equivalent, so that you have that foundational knowledge to work at a graduate level if you take one of our graduate courses.
Right. Okay, thank you for explaining that further. I think that was very clear. If anyone has any questions, again, you can ask in the chat. No, not in the chat, in the questions section, sorry. And we have Lisa who is answering our questions. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so next, how do you ensure that the curriculum stays relevant and practical?
We use our instructors who are working in the field as professionals to ensure that what they're teaching is current with what's happening in today's marketplace and today's business world. And as I mentioned earlier, I draw upon our instructors as subject matter experts to develop curriculum updates. And so the way it stays current is when we redesign a course, we look at the resources that support the student learning and make sure that they're no more than 3 years from the publication date. So we're now in 2025. So that says our resources should be from 2022 or more recent, so that they're the latest of what's published about the concepts and theories that we're sharing with our students. Now, there might be some dated material that comes from a foundational purpose. So there's some concepts and theories that are well established and are still relevant today. So where they are introduced, that might be something that's from 20, 30 years ago. If we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or some other foundational theories There might be some materials that introduce those, but then we'll have articles that connect that foundational theory to how it's being applied today and how it's evolved since it was originally formulated. So the way we keep current is using the latest articles that are 3 years or newer and relying on our instructors that are working in their fields to bring what's happening today into the course curriculum so that when we're connecting the application with the theory, it's how's it being applied today? What is happening in today's diverse marketplace? And how are these things put into practice from a marketing perspective, from a employee development perspective, from a product delivery perspective, from a logistics, from an employee engagement, development, succession planning, all of the latest concepts and theories, how are they being put into practice today? And so our practitioner faculty are really our connection to currency for our curriculum.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. I think that's a very important question in order to frame the curriculum. So thank you for that. And what skills would you say are most important for students to focus on?
Yeah, I think most important skills start with communication skills, because anything that we're going to be doing, we need to be able to express ourselves through communication, and that's both oral and written. And so the ability to understand another person's message, because communication is a two-way process. It's being able to understand what someone is sharing with us, as well as ensuring that they're understanding what we're sharing with them. So one of the most critical skills is effective communication. And then critical thinking skills that support our ability to gather relevant information, not just any available information, but what's relevant to the situation that we're dealing with, and the ability to analyze that and make thoughtful, informed decisions. And so the ability to think critically and apply that critical thinking to analyze information and use that information to inform our decision making. Teamwork skills are extremely important, because with the complexity of what's happening in business today, no single individual is going to have the bandwidth and the diverse knowledge and background to drive those initiatives to completion. And so the ability to work with teammates that bring different experiences and expertise and competencies to complement our own so that we can deliver these complex projects and products and services. So teamwork skills are very critical. And what organizations are really looking for is problem-solving skills. So the ability to define the problem in real terms and then analyze the problem using your critical thinking skills to identify what is the root cause of this problem. And then use your critical thinking skills. Okay, what could we do differently that would eliminate that problem, because we eliminate the root cause. And then analyze those problems to determine which of those solutions is best designed to address that problem, which there's many factors. Do we have the resources? Because we can come up with the best problem, but if we don't have the means to implement it, it's not going to be effective because we can't put it into practice. And so we have to look at what are the resources necessary to put that solution into practice, and do we have those resources available to us? So that's part of that critical thinking. But organizations want people that can solve real world problems. And to do that, we have to have technology literacy. And so there's an array of skills: communication skills, critical thinking skills, teamwork skills, problem solving, and technology literacy. I think those are the compendium of skills that really drive success. And our programs are designed to deliver those skills, because we have what we call program learning outcomes that define what it is our students are going to learn as they progress through our program. And then we take those program level learning outcomes and convert those to course learning outcomes, and then unit learning outcomes. So each week you're learning skills that complement and deliver the course learning outcomes that then roll up to the program learning outcomes, so that we have a high confidence level that when a student completes our program, we know what their capabilities are. And those capabilities, those proficiencies and competencies that they develop, are benchmarked off of what other experts say is needed in today's business world. And so we don't just say, this is what we think people should learn. We consult the experts that are a combination of academics and business professionals to say, this is what the market is looking for. And so those define our learning outcomes. And then we measure those at different points throughout your journey to ensure what we say you're learning, you can demonstrate your learning through these assessment tools. So we define the skills that people should learn, and then we deliver the curriculum that develops those skills, and then we have specific measurement points to determine are students really learning what we want them to learn so that we can ensure that our graduates have the necessary skills for success in their chosen careers.
So you're really setting up the students for success, which is really, really key, very key.
Yeah.
So,
and very recently we were accredited by the WASC Association,
yes.
and one of the key deliverables that they look for is a robust student assessment learning outcomes process. And so our achievement of the WASC accreditation is basically a seal of approval that says we've met a very high standard in delivering student learning outcomes. Because that's what the accreditation bodies look at, is are you delivering what you say you're delivering?
Yeah, it's a very important very exciting milestone at University of the People. Okay, so what kinds of students typically enroll in the business program?
Well, I wish I could paint a picture of our typical student, but with the diversity of students that we have from 200 countries and territories around the globe, they're all very unique and special individuals, and we appreciate all of them.
Yeah.
But they do have some common characteristics. Most of our students are working adults. They've come to a point where they've decided, kind of like, I look back on my own journey, where I decided I really need to invest in myself through education to advance my career and be able to achieve my ambitions. And so I applaud anybody that wants to invest in themselves through higher learning, because who better to invest in than yourself? And the beauty of higher learning is once you've acquired that, nobody can take it away from you. It is yours for life. So our students are at a point where they've made the decision, I want to invest in myself. And I want to invest in myself through higher learning. And they come to us because we open the doors of higher learning
Hmm.
qualified students. And so, and we don't turn anybody away. They don't necessarily, they could have the means to go to another institution that charges tuition, but they choose to use that funding otherwise, maybe to save for a home and the like. And they'll use our model to advance their higher learning and develop, career-ready competencies to advance in their career. So we serve a very diverse population, but I think what they have in common is this decision that it's time I invest in myself so that I can, see a brighter future for myself, for my family, for my community. And we open the doors of higher learning for those students.
Yeah, and what is there like a student success story that sticks out to you that you can share with us?
Well, I talked about the one that came to us from the military. Well, this was a different institution, but it's a similar story. What really strikes me, what really moves me, are the number of refugee students that we serve who are displaced. They've had to leave their home because of untenable situations in their homeland, but they didn't give up on their desire to improve their opportunities and invest in themselves through higher learning. And I just have so much respect and admiration for those students that are in those situations, but really see the value of higher learning and really want to invest in themselves. And we, open arms, we welcome those students. We have special scholarships for those students because typically they don't have the financial means, but they have the desire and the ability. And so we welcome them and embrace them and work with them to achieve their goals.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that really sticks out is, the refugees who are able to study with at University of the People because it's all online, so you can be
Yeah,
anywhere,
yeah.
anytime.
Anytime.
Uh,
Yeah.
and has a student ever taught you something unexpected?
Well, I learn from my students every day. Um, and I go back to that comment I made earlier. That when I was teaching in a live classroom, I would comment that I learn as much or more than my students, and that's still true today. Um, they bring such diverse experience and backgrounds and different ways of looking at and applying what they're learning in the classroom. And what I also learn from the students is something I call grit. Um, and that is the ability to overcome life events um, that might otherwise, cause us to stop and change direction and say, "Oh, I can't be successful at this." Um, but to see how they've overcome life events and life circumstances, um, I learn from that every day that my problems are pretty small compared to what many of our students have experienced. And if
Right.
they can carry on under the circumstances that they're experiencing, I've got nothing to hold me back as well. And I think it's a model for their classmates as well. When they post in you know, the introductory, threads what their life experience is like right now, and people
Mhm.
go, wow, if they're able to pursue and persevere, I have no excuses. Um, and so they teach us how to rise above our circumstances and how to, you know, develop that grit and growth mindset that I can overcome this and I can be successful in spite of what I'm enduring.
Yeah, everyone can really inspire each other with their stories and their life experiences, and I think it's really one thing that sticks out with the students at University of the People because everyone's going through different things, different challenges, different life events. Um, so my next section is really geared towards advice for future students. So I think this part will be really interesting for all the attendees because it's very specific towards them, geared towards them. So would you say is the biggest challenge University of the People business students face and how can they overcome it?
That's an interesting question, and I think one of the biggest challenges that our students face is time management because, um, as I mentioned earlier, the majority of our students are working adults. Many of our students have challenges based on things happening in the geography, um, the refugee students. But I think a common challenge is how do I carve out the 15 or so hours a week that I now
Hmm.
need to dedicate to be successful in my studies? Because
Hmm.
what we've learned, how we've designed our courses is so that students can expect to spend 15 hours a week per course to be successful in their program. So now the question becomes, how do I carve out that 15 hours a week? Because many of our students are managing multiple priorities. They're working a job, they're managing a family, they might be taking care of children or an infirmed parent. So how do I carve out that 15 hours a week? Um, and one of the things I recommend is making sure that all the people that you interact with routinely know that you are signing up for a degree program and that you're going to be taking college courses and that there's certain things that you had discretionary time for before you became a college student that you're using that discretionary time now to dedicate towards your academic pursuits. And so if the people around you that you interact with routinely now have that understanding, they can do things to help you be successful. Um, and my wife was my biggest supporter because, as I mentioned earlier, all of my academic pursuits were as an adult. And my wife could see, how important this was for me, how important it was for us as a family. Um, and so she stepped up and did things that I would use my discretionary time to do. Um, we had friends that I notified, my colleagues at work I notified, um, so that they were aware. But I also had the opportunity and was drawn upon by people I worked with. Um, have you learned about this thing in your coursework, Rich? Do you have any insights that you could share with us? And so it helps reinforce the learning by telling the people that you work with what you're learning and how you can bring that into from the classroom into the workplace, and everybody starts to benefit from it. And you draw more motivation because you start to see the value of what you're learning real time and how it's bringing value into the workplace. And those kinds of things then lead to your workplace recognizing that you now bring additional value. And they can start to chart out a course of advancement, and engage with you as you're advancing in your studies. Where are you in your program, so that we can start to lay out this career path for you based on your academic achievements and what you've learned and how it now brings additional value to the workplace. So I think you can change this challenge into an opportunity in how you position it by sharing with your people you interact with in and out of the workplace, that you're pursuing this degree and how it brings value to that organization, and how people that are you're interacting with can help you be successful because they take an interest in what you're doing and can take over some of the duties that you were doing to free up that all important time. And it's important to have a quiet space for your studies so that you're not distracted, so that that 15 hours is very productive time. So I encourage you to identify the time and the place, and that place is then conducive to how you learn so that you can maximize those hours that you spend in that space. And then the people around you can be supportive of that experience to help you be successful.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And what do you wish more students knew before starting a business degree at University of the People?
Well, that's again some great questions. And I was at the WASC and DEAC conference, our two accreditation bodies, last month, and one of the attendees made a comment that kind of resonated with me, and I'm going to draw upon it now, is that when you start a degree program, recognizing that starting a degree program is more like going to the gym than going to a spa. And the reason I say that is because when you go to the gym, what you get out of that experience is what you put into it. And when you sign up for a degree program, what you get out of that program is what you put into it. So it's not like a spa where you're there to be pampered. It's more like a gym where you have to put forth the effort to get the benefit. And so be prepared to work hard. Be prepared to put forth your best effort, knowing that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And also, understand what is it that I want to get out of this experience. And I know that, that student that I talked about that was out of the military and wanted to work in logistics after she graduated, she was working towards a specific purpose. So define your purpose, because it's going to be that purpose that's going to sustain you through your academic journey. And when I finished graduate school, a group of us, 3 or 4 of my classmates and I, went and talked with the program director about doctoral programs. And I'll never forget, one thing he made clear was, you better know, if you're going to pursue a doctorate, you better know what you're going to do with it. You better have a clear purpose for it. And I thought, well, that makes perfect sense. Why would I put forth the effort, the time, and the money just to say I have a doctorate if I don't know what I'm going to do with it? And then 25 years later, when I transitioned out of the corporate world into academics, I saw that purpose for a doctorate. And it was that purpose, knowing what I was going to do with that doctorate, that sustained me through the rigors of a doctoral program. And so having that purpose, why you're here in this classroom, why you're taking these courses, knowing what that end goal is going to be the driving force that causes you to be successful and persevere over the challenges of achieving a degree.
Okay, well, that's really great advice. And um, what business or leader, well, you kind of touched on it, but one more question. What business or leadership advice do you yourself return to again and again?
There's one quote that well, there's actually 3 direct quotes that I have in my entire dissertation. My dissertation was over 250 pages, but there's only 3 direct quotes. One direct quote that I return to time and again that I think is kind of the essence of leadership comes from John Maxwell. And it's very simple. That quote says, "People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care." And
Love it.
I would argue that leadership is no more complicated than that. If you care about your people, if you care about your organization, if you care about your customers, you are going to do the right thing. If you care about your students as an instructor, you're going to do the right thing. And so I boil down leadership to caring about your people. And I could point to 2 specific incidents when I was working at a Fortune 500 company where I demonstrated that without knowing this quote, because this quote came later. But I had a young engineer that I hired for a program that I was managing, and she relocated from upstate New York to Chicago to join my team to deliver this project. And part of the reason she accepted the offer is because she was getting married. Her fiance lived in the Chicago area, so it was a perfect arrangement for her as well as us. But I could see that she was anxious as she was coming into work. And I brought her to my office. I said, I see, you seem a little nervous, uneasy. Can you share with me what's happening? And she said, well, Rich, you know that I'm getting married. You know that I only have 2 weeks of vacation because I'm fairly new with the company. And I've got all these things we're planning for the wedding. And I have to save my time for the wedding and the honeymoon, but I need time to take care of all these other things. I said, I could see where that would be troublesome. Let's get the team together. Let's talk about what we need to deliver, and let's come to an agreement on how you can support them when they need, time to take care of something, and they can support you when you need time to take care of your plans for the wedding, something that requires you to be there for this. And we can, I think, work through all of this together. So what do you think? She said, oh, Rich, that would be wonderful. And so I brought the team together, and we talked about what we needed to be done and when she needed time off. And without hesitation, they stepped up and said, Rich, we can work this out. You don't need to be involved with this. We got it. Fast forward, many years, and I had an engineering manager whose wife, him and I were friends outside of work. His wife had cancer and was going through chemotherapy and other things. And he needed to be with her. And I said, Dave, how about this? I've got several projects that I need done that I think you could do from home. I can take over the engineering team for a period of time. If you can take over these projects for me, you can do those at home at the schedule that works for you while you're taking care of your wife. That'll get those projects done, and I can take over the engineering team. And I think it creates a win-win for both of us. How's that sound to you, Dave? And Dave said, Rich, that would be, if you could do that, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. And I said, well, thank you, because this takes these projects that I know you have the skill set for off of my plate. And I think this creates a win-win for both of us. So just caring about your people, and what that does, they now become even more committed to the cause because you care about them. And it's not just, they're just not an end to a means, but they are an individual that has needs, and we take care of their needs, they take care of the business needs, and it creates that win-win type of relationship. So that's my quote for the day. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
It's really nice, and you sound like a really great boss. You could teach some lessons. You can teach some of my former bosses many years ago some lessons. Okay, so we're gonna lighten it up a bit. We're gonna take it down a few notches. Um, and I want to ask you a few questions. What is your favorite business book?
My favorite business book is a book called The Fifth Discipline Field Book, Strategies and Tools for Building a Learning Organization by Peter Senge and others. And I had that book in my graduate program. And then I started teaching in that graduate program. And when I talked earlier about, I started teaching in junior achievement and then I started teaching at my alma mater, I was teaching in the program that I graduated from. And I literally wore out a copy of the book. The pages were
Oh,
falling
wow.
out of it. But
Oh
what
my
was
goodness.
really powerful about this book, when I finished my grad program, um, I ended up getting my own plant to run at this company I was working for. And I thought, wow, this is a real opportunity to test the powers of the concepts in this book, The Fifth Discipline. And so at one of my staff meetings, I shared the concepts and theories behind this learning organization philosophy. And my team said, Rich, we would love to work in that type of an environment. I said, I think it's a great way to run a business. I appreciate your recognition of that. Let's see if we can't put this into practice. And so I took it to, the supervisory staff, and then I took it to the industrial staff, the employees that built the product. And I'll never forget one of the employees, after I shared with them what we were going to do and why we were going to do it, because we felt it really empowered the people and provided, if we're all learning together, because we're building a learning organization, we can learn how to do things better, faster, quicker, with better quality. And one of the employees, now she builds product, she assembles product, and she said, Rich, you should take this to the people in New York and Connecticut. That's what corporate headquarters was, rather. Not Connecticut, not New York, but Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. She said, you need to take this to those people. They need to know this. I said, I like what you're saying here, but these are educated people. I think they know this concept, but what they haven't done is seen it in practice. So my thought is, let's take this concept from this book, The Fifth Discipline, and put it into practice. And I bet those people in Connecticut are going to come here to see, what are those people doing in New York? We're practicing a learning organization philosophy. And so she said, I like that, Rich. Let's put it into practice and they'll come and see what we're doing. Well, guess what? It happened. We put it into practice. We were performing exceedingly well, beating our targets on almost every metric. And the company had what they called a celebration of teamwork event every year. And we went to the Rochester Riverside Convention Center, and this employee was staffing one of the booths that was telling our story of how we changed the organization to a learning organization. And the people from Stamford, Connecticut came to our celebration of teamwork a day and stopped by the booth and listened to her tell the story of how we transitioned to a learning organization. That's what drove our performance. And she had charts and graphs to tell the story.
Wow, very
And so
cool.
that's why I think that book really resonated with me. In fact, when I went to the administrative staff at this school to get a new copy of the book, I said, you can see I wore this copy out, pages falling out. She said, here, let me get you two, one for a spare. So,
I love that you had a backup.
so she gave me a spare book. Now, last year, my goddaughter came to visit us here, and she's an avid reader. She won many, awards for reading books. She's graduated school. She's working in Raleigh, North Carolina now. And she came to visit. And before she left, I said, Belle, I think there's a book that if you have room in your baggage for it, you could take back with you, maybe read it on the plane. Um, so I gave her my spare copy of the book,
That's so cute. I love
The
that.
Fifth
Uh,
Discipline.
okay, everyone go out and buy it now. What was the name? Sorry?
The Fifth Discipline Field Book.
There you go. Okay, so we have just 4 minutes left, and Lisa has says that there's a lot of questions that the the viewers are asking. So
Yeah,
maybe
yes. So,
Lisa,
and
I'm sorry. Yeah, go for it.
yes, I'm gonna, and Rich, I'm gonna give you a chance to get a sip of water to rest because you have been on a roll sharing some
Yeah.
great information. So thank you, and everyone's loving it. And folks, you know, I can stay on a little bit after to answer questions as well. So there's been a lot of questions about how to get started, how do classes work, how to apply for scholarships. So I'm gonna start with how do you get started with University of the People? The first thing you need to do is to apply, which is on every web page that we have. You'll see a hot pink button that says apply now. The first thing you will do after that is you will be asked to verify your email address. So please go into your email to do that. If not, you're never going to get through the application. So go in, verify your email, and then it's going to walk you through the process. It's so easy, 5 to 10 minutes tops. Through there, you're going to let us know some personal information, where you studied before, if you want to transfer credits. If you want to transfer credits, you need to upload, and you can do this yourself. You don't need to send away to have transcripts sent to us. If you have official transcripts at home, this is super easy. You'll just upload them through your computer on your phone into your portal. Within 72 hours, our processing team will issue you an evaluation that says, hey, here's what's going to transfer. Do you want to accept them towards your identified UoPeople degree? You will go in and you will confirm. If you're with a partner, which you can find on our partner webpage, we do waive the cost for the transfer course fee for up to 20 courses. If you're not with one of our partners, you would need to pay a $17 per course transfer fee. Once that is all complete, you'll go then to how do you plan to pay for your education? There's a lot of questions here. If you need to apply for a scholarship, we only ask you a couple of questions. It's very easy. We do not require the FAFSA. Those of you that are in the United States, that is the free application for federal student aid. Because we do not charge tuition, you don't have to fill out the FAFSA. So that's a huge time saver for you. And then, well, again, we just ask a couple of questions, you answer them. If you apply early, I will tell you that increases your odds of getting a scholarship. If you wait till like the absolute deadline for the admission application, our scholarships may already be awarded for that term. Now you could get awarded for a future term, and you just may have to either wait or pay out of pocket for this first term. Now, as Rich had mentioned, our scholarships are typically at the undergraduate level because our mission is to open access to education, and access begins at that undergraduate level. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be considered for a master's scholarship, but it's unlikely that it will be awarded. So I just wanted to set your expectations with that. Lastly, you'll be asked to then save your spot for the upcoming term. That just lets us know, hey, you're coming. And we want to make sure we've got enough classes and faculty ready to go, because we want to make sure you get started on your degree without any hiccups. And I do want to give a special shout out to Mustafa, who just started with us. Hey, welcome to University of the People in our business program. Another question that we have is, I want to go back to transferring credits real quick. A lot of questions on this. If you are transferring credits that were earned outside of the United States, you will have to have an international credit evaluation agency evaluate those credits, and you will need a course-by-course evaluation, not a general evaluation. And everything I'm going over is on our transfer credit page. But don't worry, you all will receive a recording of this webinar in your email within 48 hours. So don't worry if you missed something in our notes. Rich, do you want to briefly talk about how do the classes work? Folks are interested. Is it asynchronous, synchronous?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, our courses are 100% online, so they're all asynchronous. We have 8-week courses. At the undergrad level, there's a 9th week, which is the final exam week. Our undergrad courses have quizzes. There's 2 types of quizzes. There's a review quiz that serves as a test of your confidence in the material. So you can take that review quiz as many times as you want. You can use the results to determine where do I need to go back and review some of that material because I'm not quite comfortable with my knowledge on it. So it's kind of a teaching tool and a preparatory tool. So we encourage students to use those review quizzes as preparation for the graded quizzes. And then at the end of the course, there's a final exam. And then during each unit, there's usually a discussion board where there's a prompt that students respond to. The prompt is asking you to share your thoughts on a topic of the reading and what have you taken away from it? How might you see it applying? How have you applied it? And then you would then respond to how other students have discussed that prompt to get into a dialogue to advance the learning. The instructor will also comment on student postings to add to discussion and help move that discussion forward. There's written assignments, and we're transitioning from a prior model where we had peer grading and instructor grading. We're transitioning away from peer grading. So you might see some courses where there's a written assignment that you're graded by your peers, and you would write that assignment and then submit it. And then the following week, you would be assigned up to 3 papers that your peers have written. Now it's anonymous when you're given peer papers to grade. You'll see the work, but you won't know whose work it is. So it's graded anonymously. Other peers will grade your work. Now, even though it's peer graded, the instructor does a final review to ensure that the grades that are given by peers are fair. If you perceive that, I don't know that this is a fair grade, you can ask the instructor to please take a look at this and state the rationale for it. So there are still some courses that have those, but we're again transitioning away from peer grading. You'll have assignments that are instructor graded. And again, they relate to the readings that you've had, and then how do those concepts play out in the real world. And so we're working towards generating more application-based assignments that really help the students transition what they've learned from a theoretical construct to an application in the actual workplace that demonstrates the meaning and value and purpose of what you're learning. And then there's a rubric that is used to grade those assignments. And the way I would, advise you to approach that is what I call begin with the end in mind. So there's a tendency to, okay, let me go to the reading in the textbook and the articles that I have to read. I would advise you to start by reading the guidelines for the assignment that you're going to complete and read the rubric that you're going to be graded upon before you do the reading of the textbook and any articles. Because what that does is it allows you to now, when you read that material, you know the purpose that you're reading that material because you know what product you're going to produce as a function of that reading. So read the assignment instructions, read the grading rubric before you read the materials, the textbook and the articles, because now you know what you want to focus on to take away from those readings to be successful on the assignments. So kind of begin with the end in mind. Know what the assignment is before you read the related material, so you know what do I want to focus on and take away from that material that's going to allow me to be successful in the assignment.
Great, thank you, Rich. And I apologize if I have a little noise in the background. I have furniture being delivered at the moment. As anyone who's working from home since COVID, you know that these things happen. So some folks are also asking some questions about how many classes they can take at a time. Keep in mind, this does differ a little bit at the undergraduate versus the graduate level. So at the beginning, you can take 1 or 2 classes typically. If you have demonstrated higher education success, maybe you're transferring in some credits elsewhere for the undergraduate level, and maybe at your baccalaureate level, if you're going into our master's program, you have a high GPA, that is taken into consideration for possible waivers. But what we do recommend is we want you set up for success. We don't want you to overwhelm yourself by taking too many classes at once, and you're working, you're juggling family and everything else that life is throwing at your way. So we do typically limit to, at the undergraduate level, no more than 4 classes. Rich, I think graduate level is 2 classes at a time, I believe. If that's different, please correct me.
I'm not sure if it's limited to 2. I think it might be more than that, but again, it depends on what their GPA is. They have to have a cumulative GPA at a specific level that demonstrates their ability to perform at the necessary level to manage multiple courses.
Yeah.
What I would ask them to keep in mind is, if it's 15 hours a week per course and you're working and you're taking courses, you have to add all of that time up to see, is there enough bandwidth that I can be successful with all of my different commitments? Because we definitely want you to be successful in the courses, and there's a desire to get through sooner, but we don't want to sacrifice the quality of what you're learning to get through it faster, because at the end of the day, we want you to master those learning outcomes so that you now have those skills and competencies to advance in your career and be successful. So you have to keep in mind how to balance, all of your commitments so that you're successful in your studies and master those learning outcomes to then transition into, a more advanced career because of your ability to contribute at a higher level based on these new competencies and skills that you have to bring into the workplace.
Thank you, Rich. Another question someone has is, let's see, oh my God, so many questions. This is great though. I love the conversation. First of all, if you're experiencing, if you have any technical issues, some of your reporting, when you're trying to move through the admissions process, just type in the question, your email, and I'll make sure someone from the tech team or your advisor reaches out to you to handle that. So don't worry about that. We will get you taken care of. Folks are asking about cost. So yes, we are tuition free, but as most institutions have, there are other fees. Now our fees are very minimal and they're very specific. So you can find it on our website, but right now it's like, for instance, it's a $60 admission application fee. At the undergraduate level, it's $140 per course assessment. At the graduate level, the course assessments vary by program. So the master's in teaching education is $350 per course assessment, whereas the MSIT and MBA are $400 per course assessment fee. So again, still significantly lower than traditional institutions that may charge $3,000 a course. That we have that. Other folks are asking, do we have a tuition payment plan? No, because we don't have tuition. But for most of the programs currently, you do not have to pay until the 5th week of the term, which allows you to get into the course to make sure it's the right fit, that online learning is for you, and also allows you to budget a little bit too. So you may not need to pay, again, depending on the program. And I say that because we just have a couple of pilots going on where some might be paying up front, but the majority, everything is being paid within 5 weeks into the term. So I hope I answered your cost question, but you can also obtain that information on our website. If you have already applied or you're a current student, your advisor is here for you all throughout the week. We also have our chat bot, which is also on our main webpage, where you can obtain additional information after today. I think everybody, I got to your questions, I believe. If there is something that I have missed, I'm going to stay online a little bit longer to make sure I get your questions answered. Oh, here's some good questions. Whether or not our degree is recognized in different countries. Unfortunately, I do not have a black and white answer for that. It depends on the country. Now, I will say online degrees are being recognized more and more because they are growing. More traditional brick and mortar institutions are offering online courses and degrees. So it's becoming the norm, not the outlier. Unfortunately, it's based on the country, but also it's based on the employer. So if you have an employer who's based in the United States, but they maybe have an office in India, they're going to be more inclined to accept our degree or any online degree. So as Rich was talking about, kind of work backwards. Maybe look at an employer that you would like to work for and look at their job openings and see what the requirements are, or call their HR department, email their HR department. They will be able to tell you. But the majority of situations out there in the world, an online degree is valid. It's used as a hiring prerequisite if they were requiring a good degree, for example. And because we are both WASC and DEAC accredited, you're fine. Our degree programs, our courses transfer nicely. Our undergraduate serves as a prerequisite for graduate at other institutions. Again, still check with those institutions because they may want your undergraduate degree in a specific area. So let's, for instance, if you're applying to a master's in psychology program, for example, at University of Maryland, they may want your undergrad to be in psychology. Unfortunately, we don't offer an undergraduate degree in psychology. So you, again, as Rich mentioned, work backwards. See where that end result is, your end goal, where you want to be, and it's easier to kind of work backwards to see the steps that you need to take to get there. There are a lot of questions about scholarships for specific countries. For instance, if you're in Afghanistan, you are most likely going to be awarded a scholarship. And in several countries within Africa. So just make sure you have that information clearly stated on your admissions application of the country that you're living in. What is the break between course terms? It's usually a couple weeks, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the time of year, but we give you a nice little break there. But we do recommend that you continue your enrollment term to term and don't take time off. Why? Because life can always get in the way and act as a barrier. So don't do that. I have worked with adult students my entire 25 years in higher education. And if they stop, just like Rich said, going to the gym, if you stop that workout, it's going to be harder to get back on that treadmill again. So stick with it. But again, don't bite off more than you can chew. Start off slow, and if it's manageable, you can add to your course load. Or if you're in an undergraduate program, you might be able to be dually enrolled in one of our learning partners like Straighterline or Sophia Learning. And if you need to earn your degree faster, that's a great way to do it. Let's see, how many terms are in a year? 5. So we keep it going for you. And how long does it take to complete a bachelor's degree or a master's degree? That depends on you. So you could complete a master's degree in 2 years. You could probably do it a little less if you have the time to take more than one course at a time. But again, you may need approval for that. Undergraduate, for your bachelor's degree, you can complete it in 4 years if you go full time. So full time is really to finish in 4 years, you would need to take 30 credits a year. Or if you have transfer credits in, of course, you would finish in less time. All right, I think the questions have slowed down a little bit.
I think this is going to end in 1 minute. Does it end automatically, Lisa?
No, I don't think it does.
Oh.
And forgive me, because Rich, while you were talking, I was also answering questions, so I may have missed something that was said. Did you explain how the course exams work?
Didn't get into details on the course exams, but I can elaborate on that a little further. Again, they're all online. The exams are timed. And each exam will tell you before you start the exam what the time parameters are. And there'll be a clock that's counting down so that you can see, how much time is left once you start. And once you start, you can't pause the clock and start over, or it's got to be one continuous time frame. So when you're getting ready to do the exam, make sure that you have, looked at how much time is available, and then make sure that you have that much time to dedicate uninterrupted to that. We also, based on our DEAC accreditation, are required to have a certain number of proctored exams, which basically says you have to have somebody that verifies that it's you taking the exam and that you're not using any outside resources that are not allowed for that exam, so that we maintain the integrity of the exam process. And then those are scored automatically. They are not scored by the instructor. And you'll see your results in your student portal, how you perform both on the exams and on the quizzes.
Okay.
Just one other comment that I found to be very helpful when I was pursuing my degrees, and that was to maintain a sense of balance. And I was working full time. I was going to school, and we took Fridays as a day off. I worked Fridays, but I didn't do schoolwork on Fridays. my wife and I would go to dinner with another couple on Fridays and go to either their house afterwards or our house afterwards, and have dessert and play a game, just to provide that balance. That my wife wasn't fully dedicated to work and school, but I had some level of balance to kind of recharge and keep that energy flowing. So I encourage you to not, dedicate every minute that you have to either school or work, but find, a routine to establish where there's some time, like me time, to kind of decompress, and that allows you to re-energize yourself, to then go back into the studies. Because then Saturday morning, I was up and refreshed from a nice, relaxing Friday night, to hit the books and finish up any assignments, and be, productive as a student as well as an employee and as a husband. So I encourage you to find that balance that allows you to sustain that going forward, be successful on all of those commitments that you've made to your studies, to your job, to your family.
Great.
Yeah.
You know what, Rich, that's great advice. I did that during my doctoral program too. My husband loved to fish, but I had so much reading to do, so I would just go on the boat and read while he fished,
Oh.
but we still work together, spending time, have a little picnic on the boat. So, there's ways you can make it work. You can be creative with it. But Jessica, I'm going to continue to type in folks' questions here. So if you want to wrap things up.
Yeah, so sorry, Lisa, you're gonna keep answering?
I'm going to stay online and answer for a bit, but I'm just going to do it through the question portion
okay.
of the thing, not live. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Rich, for a wonderful interview. You provided so much insight, and I hope our attendees, had an interesting lecture, webinar. And I really appreciate your time, Rich. I know you're very busy, and Lisa, I know you're very busy as well. So thank you both so much for joining us. And Rich, I really enjoyed learning about your background and the business program at UoPeople. I want to study at UoPeople.
Okay, well, now you know how to apply. So
I can help you get enrolled there, Jessica. Don't you know that? Come on now, don't tease me.
My face is turning red. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for attending. So yeah, I guess if anyone has any questions, you can email admissions@uopeople.edu. Our admissions advisors are here to answer your questions. Lisa will stay on the line. So that's it. That's all we got. So Lisa, how do we end this?
I'll end it. So you guys
Okay.
can just go off camera and I will end it when I'm done typing in questions. But again,
All
as Jessica said, there's admissions@uopeople.edu for questions if you have not applied yet, or if you just started the application process. But if you've gone through the application process, don't forget you have an advisor there. So please use your advisor. For those of you that have sent me your personal information to reach out to you to troubleshoot, I will have your advisor reach out to you or the tech team, whichever the situation may be.
All right, I'm gonna let Lisa end it. Thank you again, Rich. Thank you again, Lisa. And thank you everyone for attending. I hope everyone has a really wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Bye.
thanks, Jessica, for the opportunity.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Rich, so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.